You may not like it, but this is what peak performance looks like. Piloting the COM 2D Commando is the closest anyone sane will get to being in a proto-mech. There are smaller light mechs, but the Commando makes you feel the most in tune with it because the rough ride means you feel the terrain in ways you don't in other mechs, and I mean that in the positive and negative sense. The upside is your brain's sense of balance is that much better, so it's the most intuitive mind-body connection you can get without moving to clan space and making a Faustian bargain that sacrifices a sound mind on the altar of being one with the mech. The downside of this tactile synchronicity is that you drive this thing long enough and your coccyx will grind itself into the consistency of aquarium gravel. I only drove this thing for 30 minutes and now I never want to pilot one again. If I ever get my hands on Comstar's time machine, I'm going to go back in time and punch Andre Barkalow right in the gooch and see how he likes it.
My taint has been tenderized.
The Commando is the oldest mech model in continuous production. Originally released in 2463 by Coventry Metalworks, then known as Coventry Defense Conglomerate, the Commando was, according to my research, the very first dedicated scout mech. It wouldn't stay that way, and we'll talk about that later. I can hear 1,000 keyboards clacking, and let me cut you off right there. Everyone's Timbicky light chugging, beer belly uncle claims that the Commando was released to compete with the Wasp and the Stinger. This rumor became more popular than free double heatsinks after Grey Monday happened and fact-checking armchair mech historians became a Sisyphean task. But the truth is actually the opposite. The Wasp and Stinger came out 8 and 17 years respectively after the Commando was released in 2463 to try and fill the relatively new scout market created by the Commando. Sweet Kerensky, this McDonald's Happy Meal toy has been in production for nearly 700 Blake-loving years. Now, the original COM 1A had just an Odin large laser in the right arm, but the heat fluctuations made the right arm stiffer and more unresponsive than a participant in No Nut November on December 2nd. So the large laser had to be abandoned in favor of a Defiance B3M medium laser, a Coventry SRM4, and a Shannon 6-shooter SRM6 in the 2D model. And it speaks to Coventry's flexibility and forethought that a mech conceived at the dawn of the Battletech era changed into what would be its best-selling variant for 500 years, while so many of its Neanderthal contemporaries went extinct. An Illyrian commonwealth would guard the plans and production of the Commando like a dragon guards a pile of gold, or Pharrell guards the secret to immortality. To our modern eyes, this might seem like someone getting a home security system to protect their can opener. But you have to keep in mind, when this came out, it was the first scout mech. Hell, it was the first light mech. And there are more surviving Nova Cats now than there were different mech chassis at the time. The battle mech market was in its formative years. Everyone was experimenting like a college freshman. And no one knew what the mech animal kingdom was going to look like, what might be a game changer. In that sense, the Commonwealth's jealous guarding of such a primitive machine makes a little more sense. So why does this diminutive dinosaur endure? Why has it outlasted 1 Republic, 2 Star Leagues, 10 clans, and 100 wars? Well, first of all, it can be fixed with a crescent wrench, duct tape, and the power of profanity. Second of all, it's cheap. It's not the cheapest light mech, but on a DPS to C-bill ratio, this power armor with gigantism sits in a real sweet spot. The sweet spot is also the name of my favorite Solaris Gentlemen's Club where all the dancers have skunk personas. But I think it endures because this mech is Manny Pacquiao. For those not familiar with boxing, Manny Pacquiao is one of the best boxers of all time. And he did it while standing 5 feet 5 inches tall and with a reach of 67 inches, making him significantly shorter and shorter ranged than the boxers he regularly beat on the way to multiple world championships in multiple weight classes. The Pac-Man was good at almost everything, but he was known especially for his frequency of punches and fast footwork. He threw as many as 1,000 punches in an hour-long boxing match, and while he could shrug off a punch, he never took one he didn't have to. The Commando started as a scout but became a striker. It works best when ambushing its target, overloading it with an alpha strike, and disappearing, then rinse and repeat. Throw 15 punches in as many seconds and be gone before your opponent can land one. And it was a role the Commando excelled at. In 2475, the first large-scale mech battle happened between a group of commandos and a group of gladiators, which is a 55-ton mech. In this Monitor and Merrimack meets David and Goliath fight of the battle mech era, the commandos stomped the heavier gladiators. This was a shot heard around the world that light mechs had utility. Now, unfortunately, no battle ROMs of the engagement are known to still exist, but if you want to know what it looked like, go watch Pacquiao v. Margarito. Make sure you stay for the judgment. The Commando, the official mech of a guy who dresses like a divorced accountant but can bench press an elemental. The Commando would go through various upgrades over the years, but if you want something rare to show off at your local Mechs and Matcha meet, try and find the 1B model. It's a resto mod that takes the Commando back to its original concept, removing all its weapons and giving it a large laser with a very special upgrade. It works. Probably the rarest model is the 1C, which swapped the missiles for an AC-2, which would be a nasty little surprise for anyone. But so far as I can tell, it never made it off the proving ground, so if you find someone claiming to sell one, I hope you're a civil engineering enthusiast because they also have a bridge to sell you. A lot of people look at the Commando and imagine this as Fisher-Price's My First Mech. But unless you're engaging in 1980s movie attempted murder disguised as hazing, do not, I repeat, do not put a new mech warrior in this mech. Because this tiny, tenured UCLA professor does not suffer fools. This might be a simple machine, but it is not a simple ride. Because this mech is expected to do work. No one expects a Locust to really do damage. At best, it's a harasser, and all due respect to Lori Kalmar's last stand at Thunder Rift, but if a Locust ends up in a stand-up fight, you done fucked up, son. One would be forgiven for thinking that instead of the Special Forces Commando units of World War II, the Commando is instead named after leaving the house sans underwear, because when you drive this mech, you can feel the cold breeze of danger on those cheeks. Because the Commando is expected to actually fight. It was the lightest inner sphere mech of the period, designated a striker that wasn't locked up in Comstar's
"You must be this crazy to ride"
vault. The closest analog for the time period that I can think of is maybe the Panther, and sure, the Panther is slower than your parents' Wi-Fi, but it has significantly more armor and it's packing a PPC. Say what you want about the Lord's Light PPC, and I could say a lot about that Saturday night special of applied particle physics, but it can do as much damage in one shot as a Commando's whole Alpha Strike, and at much longer range. Manny Pacquiao said that he was such a good boxer when he was young because boxing was essential to his survival. And so it is with Commando pilots. They're good mech warriors because due to a homeopathic level of armor, everything you meet can kill you. A PO tank can kill you. A Locust can kill you. A group of infantry with SRM launchers and zero sense of self-preservation can kill you. The Commando, the official mech of life insurance beneficiary forms. In a Commando, you are a great mech warrior or you are a dead mech warrior. This inspires what many might call arrogance in its pilots, sometimes known as big commando energy. But don't get it wrong, this isn't the Napoleon complex of the shortest guy in the bar. You pick unnecessary fights in a Commando, and you should also pick what wet-dry shop vac is going to hoover up your chunky salsa remains out of the cockpit. Now, this is the rightfully earned confidence of a professional at the apex of their skill and experience. No joke, I asked the owner of this Commando if she would ever consider trading up to something else, since she was approaching 10 years of cockpit time with this particular mech, and she looked me dead in the eyes and with a confidence found only in Solaris champions and Word of Blake fanatics told me, "One way or another, this is the last mech I'll ever pilot." Oh, not since Lady Dimitrescu have I been so attracted to and so scared of someone at the same time. Look, at the end of the day, some mechs are better than others, and the Commando's longevity testifies to its high ranking. But the Commando's best quality isn't found in its armor, or weapons, or its Star Shark targeting computer, but instead in the level of performance it demands of its pilots. The Commando is Steve Rogers, surrounded, holding up a trash can lid and saying, "I can do this all day." A Commando pilot is Captain America, surrounded, saying, "Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?"